In this video, I will be talking about probably the best build currently in the game for soloing ETOTs. For the people who don't know, ETOT stands for Exalted Tower of Trials. It is one of the two new endgame game modes released this update, and it is the hardest game mode in the game by far. It is extremely unbalanced, but it is also super rewarding. I don't like to throw the word best around, but from the dozens of builds I've tried in ETOT, this one is just so much stronger than any other build I've played before. The only way I can see a build faster than this is an insane shield build, so if they fix the Mobius second shard, the Mobius Curse shield build might be able to compete. But other than that, this build is just on another level of broken, and as you can see, over 10 million consumes consistently with little to no setup. The highest I've hit, I think, is 77 million, just absolutely destroying everything. Let's look at the shards first. Avalanche Technique is the reason why this build does so much damage. Whenever you consume poison, 4% of the damage dealt is stored in your Vengeance meter, with a maximum of 50,000 damage. Whenever you hit an enemy with a weapon technique while your Vengeance meter is full, expand your Vengeance meter to deal earth damage equal to the amount expended. Now, how much is 50,000 damage? It doesn't really sound like a lot, right? But to give you an idea, if you're familiar with the shock build, Rehearsed Shame has less than 2,000 base damage. So 50,000 damage is basically more than 25 times Rehearsed Shame's damage. So you can look at it as 25 stacks of Rehearsed Shame shock. And that is a lot of damage. So yeah, if you can inflict poison with this, it will do absolutely crazy amounts of damage. But if you look at it, it doesn't say it can inflict poison. So I will talk about how we can make it inflict poison later. The second shard I use is Dust of the Earth. The first part of it is nice, but it doesn't really matter that much. Just gives you Petrifying Slam, another 5,000 bonus earth damage that inflicts poison. But the second part, it creates a poison cloud for 15 seconds, and for every enemy you hit with a slam, you gain 45% poison power while you are in the poison cloud, and it has a 30-second cooldown. Most of the time you will hit at least 2 enemies, and a lot of the time you'll hit even more, maybe 3 or even 5 enemies. So it will just give you a ton of poison power for free. And that's also the reason why you want to get a little bit more duration than power when you're gearing, just to balance it out. Now let's talk about the gear. So the weapon here is very important. I'm using a triple primary item here, which only drops in ETOT, but don't worry, you do not have to use a triple one. You can also use a double primary one. But the only important primary here actually is Weapon Techniques Inflict Ailments. The second primary. Weapon Technique Inflict Ailments makes your Avalanche Technique be able to inflict poison for whatever reason. So if you have this, you will inflict poison every time you trigger Avalanche Technique. But one problem with this primary is the original longsword this comes from, the one with Archon Fury Charge. Whenever you kill an ailment inflicted enemy, it only comes with air DPS, so you cannot get the earth version of it. So it has to be on a double or triple primary item. But there actually is another weapon that has the same primary, which is Stinger. It just gives you Weapon Technique Inflict Ailments. You just get an earth one, get some crit chance in the secondaries, and you're good to start out absolutely fine. And important, it has to be on the weapon. It does not work if it's only on the ring. So if you use Eye of the Dragon, for example, even though it also says Weapon Technique Inflict Ailments, it just doesn't work. I don't know which one is bugged, but it only works if it's on the weapon. I don't know why. Now, so if you're looking for a double or triple primary one. Mine is pretty good, like very very good, but not perfect. The Rosary primary, which is gain Northern Technique charge whenever you hit an enemy with your Southern Technique, is very strong, especially after the Lion Talisman nerf. It will give you pretty consistent on weapon techniques. And lastly, you want to get Blessing of Luck, ideally greater Blessing of Luck. And for the secondaries, you want critical hit chance. The second weapon I'm using is Spirit Reaper. It just gives you greater Blessing of Endurance whenever you inflict an ailment, and your polarity attacks inflict ailments. So whenever I swap to this weapon and trigger the polarity attack, I'll just gain greater Blessing of Endurance for a while. The secondary is you want weapon technique damage on it. And the reason is I only just discovered this recently. Someone told me on Discord. The reason is the secondary weapon technique damage on your offhand weapon actually applies to all of your damage, all of your weapon technique damage, even though if it's not you, even if you're not using it currently. So if you look at the stats I have right now, I have 277% weapon technique damage. If I take this out, 231%, and it's not purely visual only. It actually makes you do less damage. So yeah, just look out for a greater blessing of endurance polearm with weapon technique damage on it, and you're good. Um, for the amulet, I'm using Amulet of the Betrayer for some good one-shot protection, mainly to have a safety net against grabs, especially enraged grabs. It will absolutely one-shot you. So yeah, very nice item. You can get a double primary one with other combos, but none of them combos really matter that much. You can get some with banner charge on kill, which is pretty nice, but it doesn't really matter. Secondaries, you want critical hit chance and all resistance. For the charm, I'm using Maethra Star with Land Talisman and Mark of Fragility. You can just start with a normal Land Talisman or a primal Land Talisman. Mark of Fragility will give you a lot more damage, basically 70% more damage. But if you don't have it, it's fine. The secondaries, you want critical hit chance. For the ring, I'm using Mikolai's Hell. This is the only overhealth sustain you will need. You will get full overhealth every time you consume. You want secondaries, Ailment Duration and Ailment Power. For the other ring, now the really nice thing about Mesa is her Ascendant passive is your timing attacks consume poison. So you don't actually have to use heavily reversal. You just unlock to unlock the Ascendant passive, you just need to unlock all 4 of your shards, and your timing attacks now can consume poison. So that means you free up 1 slot of your ring, which allows me to get even more damage. I'm using a primal toxic ring, which is a green ring. It starts at green and it gives a lot of element duration. The secondary, you want element duration and element power. And if you want to get something like this, once you get 1 drop, it will drop at green. You want to enchant it to blue like this, and then you want to use your quest to re-roll it or duplicate it basically. So you click your rewards, replace rewards, and go to your rings and choose it. Also, you want to equip the ring while you're doing this because they forgot to add the sort function for the quest item selection. So you will scroll forever to find your item. So you want to equip it so it shows up at the top. And it spends primal mirror of duplication only 200, so it's nothing. And after you replace it, you click select, and you get 3 options for you to choose from. So you can get one of the 3 after you complete all your quests. And that's how I got mine, basically. For the Lifestone, Emma Power, Emma Duration, Plague Pennant, the Banner, some element power, some damage, pretty good. Now the augments. For the might augments, I'm using Twilight Bloom in the middle with Paradise and Iron Heart. Paradise helps a lot with your weapon technique charge speed, and this buff actually stacks if you didn't know. So every time you crit, it will give you a 30% charge speed. So if you crit multiple times, it will stack up. For the Vitality augments, I'm using Glamour, Rift, and Fortitude. For the Spirit augments, I'm using Innovation, just gives you better Archon Fury uptime, and Azure Fang for poison duration. The last slot, you can use whatever you want. If you are lacking in resistances, you can use Presence of Mind. You will just put Presence of Mind here and put your Fortitude here. But because I don't need any more resistances, I'm just using a Cosmera's Vision with Implicable and Divine Conduit comboed. Currently, the new double primary augments are bugged, so they can only be upgraded to level 3. So I'm missing some stats here, but yeah, you can actually just use a normal Implicable or a primal one if you want. So it just gives you invulnerability for 5 seconds or 7 seconds if you have a primal one whenever you use a Livestone. It's actually very, very strong in the ETOT, and it will get you out of a lot of really bad situations where you're getting chain stunned. So yeah, you can use whatever here. Implicable is a very good option. And basically, you just want to get as much element duration and element power on every piece of gear. And you want a little bit more duration than power, because your shard gives you power. Now for the skill tree, swap to for the skill tree. Here are the skills that you don't even need this. If you have the Maethra with fragility on it, you don't need any points in critical hit damage. But if you don't have fragility on your Maethra, or you're just using a lion, you can put 5 points into critical hit damage. This will give you 20% chance to inflict mark of fragility whenever you crit, which is a nice budget way to get your mark of fragility. 1 point to polarity, so we can swap to get blessing of endurance. 1 point to weak points, so when you occasionally hit it, you'll have a chance to gain blessing of endurance because of the ascension passive. At least 1 point into shield attacks to unlock Petrifying Slam. And the rest, you can just copy this tree. I have 13 points left here. Most of the time you'll have 12 points left, so you can put whatever you want. And if you are a Challenger Edition player, you can actually just copy the skill tree and be done with it. Now I want to talk about a budget setup of this build. Basically, where you can start while you try to farm up to the pretty optimized gear. You'll start with Stinger as your weapon of choice, an earth damage one, and the secondary if you want critical hit chance. Mine doesn't even have critical hit chance. Amulet of the Betrayer again, you just want critical hit chance. Lion Talisman, ideally a primal one, critical hit chance. Mikola's Hell, I don't even have any good stats on here, but I really want some ailment duration, ailment power. Ailment duration ring. And the augments are basically the same, but I'm using Presence of Mind here to fill up the resistances. And none of these are primal. And as you can see from the stats, you will be missing maybe 100% duration, and actually you won't be missing any power. All of these items have the one correct stat on them. So as you can see, all of them have at least one, not at least, only one correct stats. The same goes with my gear. So crit chance will be at 60%. My actual build has actually lower crit chance because my charm and my weapon isn't perfect yet, so I'm missing 20% crit chance. But yeah, this is how I will set up a budget version or a starter version of this build to farm up for the min max version.